Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Roanoke College Alumni Association NOKELive series. These live events are being held every week throughout the summer, and they include a mixture of webinars, film and book discussions, and maybe even a little bingo coming up in next month's array of events. Please visit our Alumni Hub page on the Roanoke College website, and you can find that at roanoke.edu/alumni. My name is Sally Logan Walker, and I serve the college as the Director of Alumni and Donor Relations, and it's my pleasure to host tonight's event. Before we begin our discussion, I want to cover just a couple logistic points. There are a few of us that are here on Zoom, but we have many others that are likely watching on YouTube, and we would love to know who's watching. You can use the chat feature to ask any questions. And this is being recorded and will be available on our Alumni Hub on the website, as well as on this YouTube channel beginning tomorrow. So tonight's NOKELive event is entitled Take a Hike, as we join with our Outdoor Adventures program here at Roanoke College. As you may know, Outdoor Adventures runs guided trips, hosts instructional clinics, special events, team building, and facilitation activities, as well as providing gear that can be rented for personal use. The Mac and Marcy Johnson Outdoor Center, which is located on the first floor of the Bass Center, is home to the Outdoor Adventures program. So here to tell us more about the program and to lead us in a fun exploration of three popular through hiking films is Patricia Lynn, our director of the OA program here at the college, Haley Doss Hester, class of 2012, and Brant Nethercutt. Brant, I hope I said your name correctly, class of 2021. So I'm pleased to welcome each of them and the rest of you all who are joining us this evening. And Patricia, I am going to turn it over to you. You have to take yourself off mute.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sally. So I'm absolutely stoked to be able to do this. Obviously, outdoor adventures is my passion, and backpacking is my biggest passion. And I completed a through hike of the John Muir Trail in 2016. Probably one of my favorite memories of all time, just a month of pure joy and pain and tears, and more joy and more pain and more tears. But it was really cool. And Brant, why don't you tell us about some of the stuff that Outdoor Adventures has been up to this past year, some of the cool things that we've done?
All right, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. Yeah, so Outdoor Adventures has had a very active past year. For the first time since I've been at Roanoke, we were able to successfully lead a fall and spring break backpacking trip, which went very well. I led one and Patricia led the spring break one. We also have a variety of outdoor trips, from caving, biking, backpacking, hiking, rock climbing, pretty much a ton of cool stuff happening every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and clinics pretty much every week, from Leave No Trace, backcountry cooking and nutrition, wilderness survival and fire, just a lot of really cool stuff, and we've had an excellent campus participation this past year.
We did. It was really awesome. June marked my 1-year anniversary at Roanoke College with the OA program. It was really awesome, and going into the fall, Outdoor Adventures is looking a little bit different. We have to get more creative with our programming, but I love my student staff. They are some of the most passionate folk I've ever met. We've been throwing out some really creative and fun ideas. one of my favorites so far is we're going to try to do a survivor competition on the quad where people have to build their own survival shelters and then get judged and eliminated. Mostly I just want an excuse to carry a tiki torch and say the tribe has spoken. But yeah, I think it'll be a really good time. And Haley, did you want to talk more about yourself and kind of your journey from being a trip leader at Roanoke College and how it kind of shaped your entire life, much like mine?
Yeah, and fair warning, I'm home alone with 2 dogs, so if I suddenly mute, I'm saving you from loud noises. So my journey started with Roanoke College. I went there for an art degree and fell in love with outdoor adventure my freshman year because I went on a break trip through the college. And while I was on that trip, there was a student that was helping run it. His name was Ben. Last name started with a D, I think. And then some professors were on it as well. And on that trip, I learned that you could work for the OSC and never have to pay to go on a trip again. I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So I wanted to work for Outdoor Adventure and make a small time job out of it then, because I didn't know that you could make a career out of it till later, where I met Sheree Mullins, who was about 2 years ahead of me and at Roanoke College, and she's the one that went off to JMU and got a grad assistantship running their outdoor program. And she was able to show me that there was more to it than just what I could do right there at Roanoke College. So I followed her footsteps and made it my mission to do as much as I could through the OAC while I was there and prepare myself for a grad assistantship and then a master's in outdoor education. So I was able to get so much support from Brian Ryberg, who's still there. He's in a different role now, but he was my supervisor at the time, and he really helped me pursue my dreams for that and has really helped me and mentored me through the years. And then just a quick navigation, I ran the outdoor program as a student at Oklahoma State and then went on to work for Ohio State running their trip side of things. And now I'm at Georgia State running all of the programs. So it's got a team building, challenge course, climbing wall, trips, clinics, equipment rental, all that good stuff. So that's where I'm at now. It's great. It's never too late to change your career path.
I completely agree. And I think that really speaks to what Outdoor Adventures can offer someone, because even if they don't make a career path out of it, so many people I know say that it's truly a life-changing experience. And we all know that, or else we wouldn't be sitting here on this panel right now. So I guess there's some topic points I wanted to hit, but just trying to get an idea of what people would like to talk about. So I'm more than down to talk about through hiking logistics if we have people who are interested in potentially completing a through hike or have any specific questions about that or things they'd like to talk about. One of my personal critiques with all of the movies that were recommended and watched is it didn't show any of the preparation side of things. And I think that Haley and Brant could also attest to that, that it's a lot of work on the front end. Like you get out there, and for me, that was almost the easiest part, because once I'm out there, it's just me versus the trail. It's all of the pesky stuff that I have to be thinking about beforehand and the logistics running into things. I know personally on my through hike, I ran out of my medication and I had to wait around at at truly the smallest general store, waiting for a package that never came, me trying to freak out with limited cell reception, trying to call my folks being like, can you mail me more medication? Like, how long am I gonna have to be here? But that was never shown in the movie. So I'm more than down to talk about through hiking logistics. And then also something that I'm interested in is the environmental impacts that these popular movies, and it's not just related to backpacking. We have Free Solo with climbing, things like that, that are drawing a lot of attention towards outdoor activities in a way that we haven't quite seen. They have become quite popular, specifically in the past 10-ish years. So if anybody would like to talk about the environmental impacts. And then also how these movies could portray things. And something I'm specifically interested in is these are three different movies. Two are major motion pictures and one is a documentary. But I was really interested when I was watching it how age and gender and socioeconomic class and race really played into each of these individual experiences that people had when they were out on the trail. So that's something I'm interested in, just throwing that out there. But does anybody have anything specific they want to talk about? Or Haley or Brant's like, yes, I definitely want to talk about this thing. So the names of the movies, there's Mile and a Half, which is a documentary about the John Muir Trail. Wild, which is a movie adaptation based on the memoir of the same name by Cheryl Strayed, who completed over 1,000 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. And then the other one is A Walk in the Woods, which is a movie adaptation of the book by Bill Bryson, in which he unsuccessfully attempted a through hike of the Appalachian Trail.
I actually had a question about that one, Patricia. That one is the one that features McAfee Knob, which everybody knows pretty much, I think, from their days at Roanoke. I think every student that comes goes on that hike at least once, including myself. But I thought that they didn't actually go to McAfee Knob as part of their true story hike. Is that correct? Or did they actually get up there?
I'm not entirely sure. Like, I haven't read the book by him. I've only seen the movie. But according to where the map was, because that's something that I thought was really interesting in the movie, is when they're in the AT shelter and they're like, we're not even halfway, and it shows where they're at. Technically, they should have already hit McAfee Knob if they were where they were supposed to be. So I was like, that's a little out of sync. So I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that the movie poster gave an unrealistic shot of McAfee Knob. So like what you're seeing in the shot and what you're seeing on the poster is like, as we all know, doesn't really look like McAfee Knob.
And then as a result of that, I think the population, like the number of people that visit McAfee Knob has just skyrocketed since then.
Yeah, it's become a very popular trail. Something that I'm trying to do to mitigate that overcrowdedness, especially with COVID-19 and specific trails were getting really slammed because they were the ones that people knew the most. And one of the few activities that you could do was go outside. So areas started to get slammed. I think they actually shut down McAfee Knob for April and I think most of June. But something that I try to do is not program there unless it's for the incoming freshmen on our pre-semester program journey. We're coming up on our 21st year. We're doing a hybrid version of virtual and on-campus programming for small groups because we can't do the traditional route. But I try to program McAfee for there and then probably like once in the spring and maybe once in the fall, just because it does get really crowded. So crowded that they're actually planning on redoing the parking there at that trailhead to make a pedestrian bridge that goes over the road so that we don't have as many hikers trying to run across that really blind turn that people drive super fast on. So there's been some debate on that of we don't want to destroy the aesthetic of what this road looks like. Is more parking really the answer? What if we shuttled people up? So that was a debate for a while to just cut down on the amount of traffic that McAfee Knob sees.
Yeah, I saw, I think it was the county or the city, whoever owns that property right there, posted something on social media recently about the pedestrian bridge. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I know that they, previous to that, they were looking at like the shuttle option, and it's just a really popular spot now. But one of the opinions that I was reading while I was prepping for this, somebody was saying that they were hoping that these movies would draw more attention to the conservancy side so that people would be more active with the Appalachian Trail Club and things like that, so that they could be more so that they could be better stewards of the environment. I hope that's the case as well. I mean, it's proven that people care more about things that they understand and things that they have a personal connection with. For adults, we really preach leave no trace ethics, but it's been proven actually for kids that it's better if they can interact with their environment, because then they're more likely to care about it when they're older. And I'm thinking that that might be a little tidbit we need to hold on to. So maybe McAfee Knob is getting crowded, but that's not really the individual's fault if they don't know where else to go. And we should be better about providing more diverse locations for trips. And as well as if that's the only interaction that this kid or this adult has with nature, I don't want to begrudge them of that.
Well, Patricia, I think that all the topics that you suggested would be incredible to hear your thoughts on. So I think if you want to just kind of keep going in that direction, and then we can, if folks want to ask questions, they can ask in the chat.
For sure.
So they don't interrupt, or we could go that route.
Cool. And then Haley and Brant, like, obviously feel free to pop in whenever. I don't want this to be the Patricia Lynn show for the next 45 minutes. I love hearing myself talk, but not that much.
Yeah, I had followed some of the themes that you had, and also just like, I didn't watch all 3 movies. I watched 2 of the 3, but I did watch like snippets of A Walk in the Woods, and have some critiques about some safety stuff that were in there that if you didn't know better, you might not have realized, but there were things that I caught through watching them that I was like, I wouldn't have done that.
For sure. I also, there was one part that I'm just going to point out, when the whole thing with the bear was like really annoying to me, because they were acting so scared of it. It's a grizzly. Like, it's not a grizzly. This is the East Coast. You're not going to encounter a bear that's going to be that aggressive. And then it was the portrayal I felt was the portrayal that we got in A Walk in the Woods, I think, was the most unrealistic expectations that you would get from an outdoor trip. It seemed really glamorous, and they were staying at a hotel for like 30 minutes of the movie. I'm like, why are y'all staying so long at this hotel? And I think that that's where I was thinking a lot about money and age. This man was established in his career, and he had enough money that he could buy the top of the line gear. He could afford to go off the trail, stay at a hotel for a couple of days. And Cheryl Strayed and her portrayal, she doesn't have enough money to buy herself a Snapple, and somebody has to buy it for her. And I read her book. It was incredible. I read her book like, I think a couple months ago, but so many times she's trying to plan her resupply points to have cash on hand, and she never has enough cash. I think she says that all the money to her name has gone into this trip, and she has barely enough to survive. And so when she missed one of her resupplies, or it got shipped to the wrong spot, she didn't have any money, and she didn't have any food. And so she was in more of a pickle than I was with the missed medication. I could at least call and figure out what was going on. She just had to brainstorm and push forward. So Haley, what were some of the risk management things? Because I love risk management, and so does Brant. Brant loves risk management.
Yeah. One of in the Walk in the Woods, the part that I was like, just a small thing, and there's also like some snafus in the filming. The men are trying to cross the stream, and they're gonna potentially get in deep water. There's some section you can see below the rocks that they fell in. It was deeper, and which they end up doing is fall into the little deeper area. And there's a clip where you see them both, and you can see all the buckles done up, and then it blips, and like one of them has his buckles undone suddenly. It doesn't film that. And there's no conversation about the crossing. So typically in that scenario, you have a really weighted bag. A risk is that if you were to fall in, you have this thing that's really heavy on you, and if it forced you face down, it could hold you under. So a small thing to do is undo both of your buckles so that if you were to fall in, you can shuck it off your shoulders and get out of the water that way. And in that case, they kind of had a drowning hazard because they didn't do that. It looked like one man unbuckled his sternum strap and not his hip belt. And that's a precaution. And typically, if you think that you don't have good footing, a good measure is to get a stick or something and build like a tripod for yourself so that you can feel around and touch the rocks to make sure that they're not going to flip on you. So that was like a small scene in there. And then also with that one, the bear scene with, it seems like all their food is just like laid out, which I don't even know how they got that far with it, like a raccoon not eating all their food. Amount of times I've had a skunk or a raccoon try to eat like a tea bag that I left in my backpack. I can't tell you, but that was very unrealistic. And knowing how to do a bear hang or just a safe way to put up, there's a squeak toy, put a bear hang up in some capacity. So those are just like a few things that I noticed and like stuck out for me. Anything that you saw, Patricia or Brent?
Not risk management, but that does bring up a good point about food storage. And for people who are interested in doing a through hike, please be aware of what the food storage requirements are for what section you are. So a bear canister is absolutely required in the High Sierra region, but not on other parts of the PCT. So if you're through hiking on the PCT, you might just carry it in a bag and do a hang until you get to the High Sierra, because the bear canister does weigh quite a bit compared to the rest of your pack. And then some people bail on the bear canister as soon as they get out of that area where it's required. Knowing how to do a bear hang on the Appalachian Trail is pretty critical. Like Haley said, like not so much bears, but like chipmunks and squirrels, man, like they will get you. And the marmots out on the West Coast, they are not playing around. They're out for your food. The Smoky Mountains has bear cables at like everywhere on their section of the Appalachian Trail, which is really easy. You just hook your food to it, hoist it up in the air, you're good to go. But proper food storage is pretty critical, especially when you're going out for that long and you need to make sure that you have enough food to last. Definitely. I know that when I was hiking on the John Muir Trail, I ran into two guys and they're like, "Hey, can you help us?" And I was like, "Maybe, we'll see, let's find out." And they said that their water filter had broken, so they hadn't had any clean water in like a day. And that these brilliant men, absolutely brilliant, decided to eat all of their food on the first 2 days so that their packs wouldn't be as heavy until their next resupply. So they had no food and no clean water. So I stayed and pumped with my pump filter, actually pretty similar to Cheryl Strayed and Wild, when she pumps the water for the hunters. But I pumped water for them, sat with them while they chugged it, pumped some more water for them, and then I had overpacked on food, whereas if I was doing a longer hike, I think I would have learned to portion things out better for myself, but I had way too much food. So I was like, yeah, here's all of my spare food, et cetera, et cetera. They were so thankful. They gave me the trail name of Aquarius because I gave them the water. And then when I met these fine men, when we were back in civilization after the John Muir Trail was finished and we were in Lone Pine together, these men bought me so much pizza. I could have burst. I was eating so much pizza. They bought me so much beer and they were so thankful. And I had a talk with Mac Johnson, actually, the founder of, the founder of the outdoor program. I was chatting with him about it. And he said that really shows you the value of things in the backcountry, because that food you gave them was probably worth $7. Water is free. But you get in the backcountry and that stuff means a whole lot more. That when I get in the front country, they're buying me so much stuff. I'm like, this is great because I just graduated from undergrad. I'm poor. I love beer. I like to eat. So it was a really good exchange.
Yeah, to mirror that, I've ran into scenarios where people were underpaired, where I was taking a group out, and just one example is a 5-day through hike of a section of the Grand Canyon with a group of people, and we had to drum our water for 14 miles over 2 days. So we started carrying it 2 days before. So that's a lot of water when you're thinking about a group of 10 people that in water weight. And it was not a pain-free experience. And coming out of that elevation, out of the Grand Canyon floor, they tell you even when it's in cooler months, you need a lot of water just because of how much incline that is. And we were passing people that were just on 2/3 of the way down, not even coming back up on the day hike version where they go to the floor and back. And they were asking us for our water. And I was like, no, I've been carrying this for 2 days, and I've done the math. I'm not giving you my water. There's none to be had here. So that's just like one of the hardest lessons people have to learn. And I think you never have to learn it twice. And sometimes you learn it the absolutely hard way without someone giving you all that good information beforehand. So hopefully you can hear this lesson and have a way to get water, more than one way. So in Trisha's instance, the filter broke. I always bring a filter, but I also bring tabs, and the tablets are the backup because they're quick and easy, but the filter is the way I hope to get all my water. So that's just a little tip.
For sure. I also wanted to talk about how the films portrayed the actual hiking. In a mile and a half, there's one of the people who started the trip who bails after like the 3rd day. He's like, I'm slowing the group down. This isn't for me. He bails. And then it looks like everybody else is having like the time of their lives. And like the soundtrack and the music makes it sound like, oh yeah, what a happy time. We're all just walking in the woods. And then also, like I said, a walk in the woods, like they make jokes, but they're more related to the men's physical health as like individuals, and not just that the Appalachian Trail is really hard. It's a lot of elevation gain and loss. You're hiking a lot every day. You're not getting enough food intake. You lose a lot of weight. Your feet constantly are covered in sores. I have permanent scars on my back, on my hips, from my backpack just constantly rubbing and rubbing. I hope I never lose those scars. They're my favorite scars. But it is really hard. And I thought that the only movie that even kind of alluded to that was Wild, where I think in the first scene you see her pull off her own toenail. And if you're reading the book, she goes through in the narration of how many toenails she's losing. And I think at the end, she's lost like 8 of them. 8 of her 10 toenails are just gone. They grow back. But I just thought that was the only part that actually talked about the physical pain and the physical demands on your body. And you also get a shot when she's up in Oregon, where she's kind of checking herself out and like seeing all the ways that her body has changed from this experience. And so, yeah, I didn't know if Haley and Brant had anything to say about the physical demands of backpacking, because I think it is really easy to portray it as, oh, it's a walk in the woods. Like, how bad can it be? But I don't know if y'all had like personal experience with getting your butt kicked on the trails.
I can say, Patricia openly said like backpacking is her favorite, and I will openly say it is my least. And not to say that I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it. It's just not the one that I like daydream about for my weekend plans. And I can't tell you the number of times that like a majority of the monotony of putting one foot in front of the other, either I'm doing a mantra to myself that I heard from my Australian guide once leading a trip that was like, your pistons are legs and they're just propelling you up the hill. And I'm just like, oh, get the pistons going. And just trying, I have that mantra sometimes. I sometimes say to myself, this literally won't kill me by walking more. It won't kill me. I've got the resources, but man, I'm not enjoying this. And then we have some sayings in the backcountry that, there's 3 types of fun. Type 3, instant gratification. You're loving it the whole time. Type 2, you are not loving it the whole time. And once you leave and go back to your regular life, then you're like, oh, that was great memories there, but you didn't quite capture that in the moment. And then type 1 is, it sucked during it, and then when you look back, you're like, no, I will never do that again. That was awful. So I feel like backpacking for me often is type 2, and look back and like, oh, those are some great memories or some great moments, but a lot of it is thinking about how I'd rather have a horse or a dirt bike.
Yeah, I describe type 2 fun as, oh my gosh, that sucked. I can't wait to do it again. That's how I describe type 2 fun. And backpacking, even in its worst moments, I wouldn't trade it for the world. When there's hail, when there's snow, surprise ice storm, like I love every minute of it. And if that makes me crazy, I at least know that there's a bunch of other crazy people out there who are doing the same thing as me. Brant, I know you like hiking. I know you have good stories. You've been so quiet. Would love to hear your voice.
Alrighty. So I don't have like too many like scarring stories from backpacking. The biggest part is what you're doing for me. It's just like when the weather is bad and you get demoralized so easily. I was backpacking along the Way of St. James in northern Spain this last summer. And during that, the weather was horrendous. It rained almost every day, even if you had a back cover and like your stuff was soaked through. So very important to have a happy sack, because if you don't have one, you're a very sad sack. And yeah, during those times, it's just really important for me anyway to bring something along with me that brings me joy. And that's oftentimes Kit Kats and then good company. Yeah.
Patricia, I think we have a question from Dale. Sergeant. Dale, do you want to unmute and ask your question? We can't hear you.
Probably also type it if we can't get your audio.
Yeah, Dale, for some reason you're unmuted, but we can't hear your audio. So you could, if you type it in the chat, then we can see it. So while we're waiting for Dale to do that, Haley and Patricia, I think I'm a type 2. I will say that I have to admit that I once compared our ascent to Sahali Glacier in Cascade National Park outside of DC, which we had done after we had summited, I can't remember, something else. And then we went down and we drove and then we did the summit to Sahali Glacier. But at one moment I compared it to giving birth. So my husband was like, I couldn't talk. And I just said, it's like giving birth. And then I kept going. Just like you said, Haley, I was just like, I hate this, whatever. And then I was like, we got to do this again. Just like giving birth. It's like you keep going back. So I think that's how, everybody has more than one child, right? You forget about the pain of the process. So
Haven't done any through hikes personally, but I will share a story about a few friends of mine. They're twin brothers who were born on April Fool's Day, and that's important because of the story I'm getting ready to tell. They hiked all the time, and they did crazy things, including dressing up as the Star Wars stormtroopers and going up and taking pictures as the stormtroopers at the Cascades in Blacksburg and also on McAfee Knob. My husband works for the Roanoke magazine, and they actually did a story about them. Their names are Jonathan and Bobby Blanding, and they actually took a couch, a full-size couch, up to the top of McAfee Knob, and took a picture with it. And I'm going to try to share that just so you can see. So that's them. These are the two brothers. I can never tell which one is which in the pictures. I have to see them in person because they look so much alike. But they took that couch all the way up there and just for fun. So I thought that was just a funny story to share.
That is absolutely amazing. It reminds me of Mac Johnson told me a story of there are these two students who worked for the Outdoor Adventures program who they would always prepare for a luau. So they would do like a 15-mile hike, and then these kids would whip out like leis and like the coconut cups with like the little umbrellas, pineapple upside down cake. And nobody would be expecting it. And just when you least expect it, they'd be like, luau, and would whip all this stuff out of their pack that they'd been carrying for miles and miles and miles. I love those little things that just make it so much better with people, whether it's a Kit Kat company or bringing up a couch, just keeping it fresh and interesting. Love it. Did we get the question from Dale?
They're still working on it.
All right. I guess that's it. I'll move a little bit from where Brant was saying that he likes bringing a Kit Kat in good company. I like bringing a book with me on the trail. If I'm doing like a weekend, I do something kind of smallish. This past weekend, what am I reading? Oh, I'm reading a book about Genghis Khan. So that's what I was reading when I was backpacking this weekend. But whenever I was on the John Muir Trail, I had a copy of The Stand by Stephen King, which is a huge, thick book. And I got made fun of by some people on the trail because they're like, you're carrying all that weight with you this whole time? And I was like, yes, I am, because I love to read. But then I also made it double purpose. So whenever I met someone on the trail or somebody was especially kind to me, I had them sign the book somewhere in the margins or on part of the blank side. So now it's really sentimental and I keep it with me. It's this copy of The Stand that has all of the memories of everyone I met on the trail. And it's fun to show people. And it's also good motivation for me whenever I kind of get in the weeds of like, I don't know why I do what I do. And then I read this book and I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And so it's really nice in that regard. Haley, do you have anything that makes your hate of backpacking even a little bit better?
I think I chose my profession well because being always surrounded with new people when I do these sort of things, because I don't do backpacking on my own. I do it for my job. That's what makes it fun for me is getting to know the different people and hearing the thoughts and conversations that come out of being removed from everything, allowing yourself to be bored and filling the space with conversation and like wild thoughts. I can't tell you the like bizarre what if questions of like looking at the rain pouring down. This is where you think you're hating life, but you're not because of the people you're with. So being soaked 6 days straight in the Adirondacks and just watching all these tiny rivers form around your feet, and then you notice the same person staring at the same area and you're like, what if you were an ant and you're on a leaf? Which one of these rapids would you ride right now? And you're just like picturing a tiny ant going down this wild river that's this big on the ground. And it's like those moments of entertainment I find a lot of true value in. And I think that's what I appreciate the most about my job and being with people.
And not
Patricia,
to
go ahead.
I was going to say, not
question.
to rag on Haley. She is a very experienced kayaker, climber. She's very adept at so many things. Just does not like putting heavy things on her back and then walking for miles and miles. It's not her jam.
Well, we're glad she jumped in anyway. So I have Dale's question. He was able to type it to me, and it's so Dale, wave at everybody so we know who you are. Dale is a graduate of the college. says, I hiked Mount LeCompte when I was in my 30s. I did not hike McAfee's Knob when I was at Roanoke in the 1970s, however. What do I need to do to prepare to hike in my late 60s?
I guess it depends on what you want to do. I think that for any type of outdoor experience, it's important to push yourself, but to not be unrealistic about your expectations, and to not be hard on yourself. There's so many times that I think I'm like, oh yeah, I got this in the bag, and then I end up feeling worse about myself. I think in terms of preparation, walking in general, just anywhere, anyhow, making sure that your cardio is in good shape. With that said, I've seen people of all ages, all body types doing some pretty difficult hikes and some pretty difficult ascents. I think my biggest piece of advice would be to know your own body and to know your own limits. Sometimes I'm hiking and I'm like, oh, I can definitely make it up to the top of these switchbacks, and I can't. My body just gives up. I just stop in the middle of a switchback, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have some of my water. I'm going to eat some snacks, and then I'm going to finish this. In that constant honesty with yourself, and reassessing what your capabilities and expectations are. So in terms of preparation, I would say it's the physical, it's walking, maybe it's walking on flat ground for however long, and then looking at alltrails.com has a really good database, and they have a really good trail description with length and ascent and elevation gain and loss, and kind of just progressing and seeing where you're at. And having a goal that meets where you want to be. Like sometimes I go out for the weekend and I want to do something easy. And so I purposely choose a trail that looks kind of easy, but I never know until I do it whether it's actually easy or not. Like this past weekend, the trail that was recommended, Mac Johnson, God bless him, he's a deceiver. He told me this is a leisurely overnight trip. This was not leisurely. I was at no point at leisure. But sometimes you don't get what you want. And I actually thought about that, the Rolling Stones song, like that's how I describe it. It's like, you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need. Backpacking in the wilderness will always give you what you need at that moment, whether you want it to or not. Sometimes what you don't want is the best thing for you. And then our students do the Catawba Challenge. I know that that's been a thing for quite a bit. Hey, yeah, I see Haley. Brant, do you want to talk a little bit more about the Catawba Challenge and how that's all about expectations and monitoring yourself and supporting each other and all those really great things that we love about outdoor adventures?
Right. All right. So the Catawba Challenge is about 20-ish miles across two of the three big peaks in the Roanoke area. We go to McAfee's Knob and Tinker's Cliffs. I forget the exact elevation gain, but it's significant. It normally takes about 12-ish hours to complete. Shorter if like people are really moving that day, a little bit longer if people aren't off days. Right. So and a big part of that is you have to really focus on the community because it is very physically demanding. You're going uphill and downhill and climbing over rocks, and you have to be there to support each other and to also support yourself. The most recent Catawba Challenge we did, I ended up coming down with a stomach bug about halfway through and having to be evac'd off the trail. I was able to self-evac. Yeah, so I'm not sure quite what you're looking for, Patricia, but
That was fantastic. Never change. And I also, I think that speaks to the risk management piece, that if you're going to do something that's pushing your limits, always, even if you're not getting, like anything could happen, tell at least one person where you're going to go and when you expect to be back. So if you're not back by that time, somebody has some idea where you might be. Also, always make sure that you're taking a fully stocked first aid kit with you, and that you're aware of your own health concerns and medical problems so that you can be adequately prepared to deal with that. Like if you know, I don't know, that you're allergic to bees, make sure you have your EpiPen on you when you go on a hike. There's certain times where it can't just be an, oops, I forgot my inhaler. The consequences are a lot more extreme. Something I wanted to touch on lightly and briefly, and we can return to any topic that we want, but for those who are interested in doing a through hike, a lot of what comes up, especially for folks and especially for younger folks like Sophie and her crew sitting out in the Colorado woods right now, is cost. And to complete the Pacific Crest Trail, it can take anywhere from $4,000-ish to $9,000, just depending on how comfy you like to be, how much you want to take 0 days, how top of the line you want your gear to be, what quality of food you're eating. People say that it costs about $1 per mile to hike, but that's not counting travel, gear costs, things like that. And you also want to have some pillow money in a contingency plan. Say the Sierra is really snowed in and you can't access this part of the trail for a week or two, and you have to stay in town. So you want to make sure you have enough money that you're able to do that. And then also giving you some money on the back end so that when you leave the backcountry, so unlike Cheryl Strayed, making sure you have some re-entry money and that you're able to support yourself for a month or two once you're actually back in civilization. There's a lot of post-trip depression that people get from doing a through hike because this real world is so different from what you were experiencing for the past 4 to 6 months. So I would say for the Pacific Crest Trail, trail time, you're looking at about $3,300. Gear, if you're buying medium quality stuff, you're looking at about $2,500. Travel, you have to somehow get out there and come back, whether it's the Appalachian Trail or the PCT or any other type of big hike. You need to make sure you can afford for the travel. And then, like I said, that pillow money and the re-entry money. So looking at around $8,000 if you want to be super comfortable while you're out there.
Patricia, I'm really glad you brought that up because I don't think that's something that people would think about. You know, they think I'm going out in the woods, even if it's a long trek like a through hike, that you wouldn't think about all those costs associated with it. Did you say you had done the John Muir trail as well? So what would someone have to think about the time and the cost associated with that? Because it's not as long, right?
No. Yeah. So total, so the John Muir Trail, it ends at Mount Whitney, but what they don't say is you have to hike off of Mount Whitney. You don't just disappear once you get to the summit. So you have some mileage on either end, and then also for walking off the trail and coming back. So I think in total, I hiked about 275 miles on that trip. And it takes anywhere, people do it in 3 weeks, but those people are madmen. I budgeted myself about, I think a month and a week, I think a total of 35-ish days. And the cost associated with that was about $3,000. I had a lot of gear already. Honestly, most of my expenses were in the travel, having to get the flight out to California, staying in a hotel in Fresno, buying the city bus pass to get into Yosemite. Yosemite itself is really expensive. If you don't get one of the walk-up campsites, I think I stayed in a tent cabin for 2 nights and it cost me $150. And I was little like 22-year-old me was like, this is not what I wanted, but here I am. And I just have to sink the cost because I'm trapped in Yosemite anyway. So that's where we're looking at that kind of that pillow money type of deal. But yeah, I would say all in all, it cost me about $3,000. I was eating pretty cheaply. If anybody's interested in my menu, I can send it out. All of my meals, I bought non-flavored protein powder. So all of my meals were very gritty, but it served me well and it lasted, and it made things a lot cheaper than if I was just eating Mountain House meals every day, because that can really add up.
I'm just wondering, like, what do you do to prepare to take care of yourself when you're out there on the trail by yourself? Like, what are some good suggestions for any training that you did for self-defense, or any particular equipment that you recommend? Like, what are some things you can talk about with that?
Yeah, so I got a lot of, when I was hiking, people would be like, oh, are you out here by yourself? And I'd be like, yes, is that strange? But like, it was one of those things where I didn't think to be scared, so I wasn't scared. And I do like how Cheryl Strayed brought up fear a lot, because it is something that pops up on the trail. I got asked a lot if I had a gun on me. I said no. I got asked if I had bear spray. I said no. Bear spray is actually prohibited in some of the areas of the John Muir Trail. That said, you do see it. I would say for preparation, I was more concerned about injuring myself and kind of being stuck somewhere. Granted, it's a popular enough trail that it wouldn't be too long before somebody saw me, but I always made sure that my first aid kit was stocked and that I had my wilderness first responder. I still do. So there's a lot of stuff that I could self-treat. I have some pictures of a gnarly blister I had on my foot. I think it took up, I'm not exaggerating, it took up my entire heel. When it finally popped, it made the most satisfying squelch. Yeah, Brant. But I think that piece put me at ease, knowing that I have the medical training and I trust myself enough to be able to deal with that if it were to come up. And then also something that I did is when I got to Yosemite, I purposely stayed there for a couple of days because of the altitude. You start in the Yosemite Valley, but you're still at a much higher altitude than you are out here, especially on the East Coast. I was coming from Columbus, Ohio, which I think was like not very much above sea level at all. And altitude sickness is a very real thing and can cause death if not monitored properly. So yeah, I had nosebleeds the first couple of days. It felt really terrible, no appetite. And the thing about altitude sickness is you cannot have it one time, but then get it like the next time you're out in the wilderness. So I'd been to Yosemite Valley quite a few times and I'd never experienced it. And then just for whatever reason, that one time I was like, these are symptoms of altitude sickness. I need to make sure that I'm okay before I start actually hiking. And then being easy on your body and monitoring yourself really goes a long way in being honest, like that no hubris piece of I actually need to take a 0 day. But yeah, I would say safety from other people and from the bears. I like to frame it as if there's a crazy axe murderer in the woods and he's that far out there, let him take me. That man has done some work to get out there. So like, I mean, I'll fight back, but like, kudos to you, man. Like, what's your training plan that you come up here with like whatever weapons you need? So that's kind of my framing on that. I actually probably get the most nervous when I'm camping by myself, more close to civilization, because it's more of a chance that somebody from off the street could be like, oh, this person has a tent. I would like a tent. With that said, there's a lot of studies about like safety and fear and kind of how it plays out in our human brain, that we are genetically engineered to be afraid because we want to stay alive. But in our day-to-day society, we're actually a lot more safe than we think we are. And yet our brains are still constantly at that fear. So something that I do is, okay, here's my fear. Here's how I can mitigate it. Here's this fear. Here's how I can mitigate it. And sometimes you just have to give it up. Like, hey, I might be struck by lightning in a freak storm by Ray Lakes. Likelihood of that happening? Probably not high. So yeah, I guess that's what I would have to say. Haley and Brent, do you have anything you want to add to that? We have about 5-ish minutes left, so anybody feeling frisky?
Yeah, so oh, sorry, Haley. So one thing when I'm out like backpacking and hiking in general out in the wilderness, I like to set up check-in points to people, be with my family or other people who might be in the vicinity. And like, if you don't, I'll reach out, touch base with you when I'm at this point in the trail, because we'll probably be between this day and this day, just so that they're aware that I'm safe and can make any precautions if they don't hear from me or arrangements.
That's a really good point, and I'm just going to say it super quickly. That's what I always tell people, like, please say hi to people on the trails and introduce yourself, because one, it's polite, but two, if something were to happen to you, somebody's going to remember, oh yeah, I saw that kid with a backwards ball cap on. He and I had a conversation about avocados being fruits. And they'll say the last place that they might have seen Brant if Brant were to turn up missing. Haley, quickly say something.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest tips I can give is building some sort of risk management plan and bring it with you, especially if you're alone, much less leading a group. And what that entails is just like closest hospital information, so you know the number, because what if you only have so much battery left, or in the park ranger's numbers of where you're at in those emergency contacts, because when it matters and you've got minutes to live, it matters to have that handy. So one of the biggest practices I've done since I almost bit the bullet on a backpacking trip is take a picture of the kiosk just in case I got a number somehow wrong on the RMP, but also because it's so much faster sometimes to just get to that photo in your phone and see the number than it is to maybe dig for that paper you mispacked in your bag and you weren't good at habitually putting it in an easy access point. That's a huge thing that can really matter.
And I don't want to end on that solemn of a note. Like, risk management is utmost importance. We joke that it's fashion first and safety second, but truly safety first when you're doing these types of trips. I asked Haley and Brant if they had a favorite scene or a quote from any of the movies. I don't know if they pulled anything, but there was a quote from Mile and a Half, not from anybody on the movie, but from John Muir himself, that I really resonate with. I only went out for a walk and finally concluded to stay out till sundown. For going out, I found was really going in. I find that so much that I go for an outdoor experience, and it's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I needed. And it is the most immersive and real and raw experience probably that I have in my day-to-day life, as any type of outdoor experience. Haley and Brent, did you have anything before we wrap up?
One of the quotes I pulled out from Wild was someone was saying, problems don't say problems, they turn into something else. And I think that's one of the biggest life lessons, that anything in your life can be awful, but it is temporary. And that is the thing that you have to remember, that nothing is permanent. It is temporary, and this time will pass. So perseverance goes a long way.
Those are great quotes to end with.
For sure.
I was curious, Patricia, your trail name again?
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Haley, do you have a trail name?
I love it, but yeah. My first backpacking trip with Roanoke College with Dr. Powers. I was the only girl, and I got named E, but it was just short for estrogen.
All right, Steve Powers. So yeah. Brant, do you have a trail name?
I do. It's Mumsy, like the Mumsy, because I tend to be a more motherly Karen figure out on backpacking trips and stuff.
All right. Well, thank you all. I was just curious. So I guess we were going to have to wrap up this fantastic hour, and I want to thank Patricia and Haley and Brant for spending time with us and sharing their thoughts and their expertise, and for everyone who joined us either on Zoom or on YouTube. And I really encourage everyone to visit the Alumni Hub on our roanoke.edu website. And there you can find a direct link to the Outdoor Adventures program. Patricia and her team have put together some incredible tutorials and really great resources, both books and films and little tutorials. So please take time to go to their webpage specifically, which you can find on our Alumni Hub. And the next time you're on campus, go by the Mac and Marcy Johnson Outdoor Adventure Center. Dale, when you're back on campus, you can check out the new gear that's probably a lot different from when you were hiking back in your 30s. So, and they can give you some additional tips. Thank you all so much for joining NOKELive. Again, we're doing this weekly through the summer. So next week we are going to be doing bingo on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock with some special guests from the campus. And then we will join you every week moving forward. So thank you all again. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.